Professor Inocencio E. Buot Jr. is a professor of botany, also taxonomy, ecology, and environmental science, and currently the head of Plant Systematics Laboratory and curator of the Plant Biology Division Herbarium at the Institute of Biological Sciences, University of the Philippines, Los Baños, or UPLB. And he obtained his PhD from University of Chiba, Japan in 1998, and later his postdoctoral research in landscape ecology at the National Institute of Forestry in Kyoto in 2005 through the auspices of the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science, or GSPS, and his research is about vegetation structure along elevational gradient in biocultural landscapes.
Thank you so much. Greetings to everybody. And I thank Dr. Penta and Dr. Safira for patiently arranging my schedule in my lecture here. I will be discussing about the new conservation science and its possible implications on agriculture diversity and nature conservation. The question is, why the new conservation? Why should there be new conservation? Is the old concept of conservation has been failing? Have you observed that? According to the proponents of this new conservation science, Dr. Cariva and colleagues, they published for the first time in 2012 in the Breakthrough Journal. So they have found out that conservation is failing. Biodiversity on Earth continues its rapid decline. And even now we are witnessing this in our own forests, in our protected areas. We continue to lose forests in Africa, in Asia, particularly in Southeast Asia, in Latin America as well. And fewer wild tigers and apes that could be lost forever if current trends continue. Losing many species and wild places despite increase in number of protected areas in respective countries. So in 1950, there were only 10,000 protected areas declared by law, and it increases to 100,000 in 2009. However, there is still a sustained rate increase of species loss. Why is this so? Are protected areas not effective enough to conserve our important species? Or do we need something more than protected areas? So this is now the quest of the new conservation science proponents. As we see with the destruction of ecosystems in many parts of the world, there is the loss of plants, animals, and even the unseen microorganisms, which are very important in ecosystem processes. And as ecologists, as biologists, we always want to preserve and to conserve ecosystem processes as they are the ones that would trigger ecosystem services. So therefore, with the destruction of the ecosystem, there will be a lot of loss. And this will become aggravated when this will result to landslide, and then there is erosion, and then there will be the dangerous bioinvasion, which we have also recently witnessed in many parts of the world. So we have the reflections of the proponents of the conservation science. These are the reflections. The world is dominated by humans, and therefore the scientific underpinnings of conservation must include a consideration of the role of humans. They should not be separated from our quest to conserve nature, from our quest to conserve endangered species. Humans have to be there in the center of the circle. The new conservation science is a broader interdisciplinary field that explicitly recognizes the tight coupling of social and natural systems. So here we have two diagrams. In 1985, there was a diagram of the different fields or disciplines that are under conservation biology. So that you will have the very common ecophysiology, environmental monitoring, you will have population biology, you will have genetics, natural resources fields of forestry, fishery biology, etc. And of course, you will have your physiology, island biogeography, historical biogeography, and hazards evaluation. Of course, there is social science as well, occupying a prominent spot. But you see, compare this with the 2012 diagram of the conservation science, the proposed conservation science in 2012, the entire conservation biology disciplines are subsumed under one conservation biology, and the rest are all other disciplines: economics, agriculture, anthropology. You have climate science. These are very important fields which are very relevant to today's problems we are suffering: public health, public policy, ethics, sustainable development, sociology, psychology, anthropology, communications, and even philanthropy. You will see here philanthropy at the bottom of the circle. Very important because we need donations, we need people we need philanthropists to fund our projects on conservation. Okay, so we will take a look at some of we will take a look further in the next slides. Okay, so since 2012, there were a lot of papers either supportive or against the new conservation science concept. So in 2013, there was the new conservation critique. And then there was that 2014 new conservation, setting the record straight and finding common ground. And then you have new conservation is true conservation, integrative reflections of on the new conservation science debate, and understanding conservationist perspective on the new conservation debate. And moving on, 2019, we have conservation in the Anthropocene, because you see, we are now in the Anthropocene epoch where human dominates landscapes. So therefore, we have to recognize this. And there is this conservation in the Anthropocene in relation to the new conservation science. And then there is the what works in conservation that was in 2020. These are all downloadable references, by the way. And then you have open access principles and practices benefiting conservation. And then you have in 2022, published by the PLOS journal, Reconceptualizing Conservation. Later, I would be looking at the details of some of this as we go along. So what are now the emerging priorities of the new conservation science? There is that number one is the pursuance of the conservation of working landscapes like agriculture, like plantations, besides protected areas. Because you see, we have been so focused on protected areas, and then we are losing a lot of our indigenous species of crops. We are always reading on complaints about the endangerment of indigenous rice, corn, and many other crops we are really protecting. So in this new conservation science concept, we want to pursue conservation in working landscapes as well. And then rebuild public support, because we are quite losing public support, because it seems that the public has been understanding that the protected areas are being isolated from them, that it should not be accessible to them. So I think there is a need to rebuild public support, and then working with the corporate sector, because they can help a lot as well. But we have to be very cautious on this. And then paying better attention to human rights and equity. They argue that in the field of conservation science, strategies must be promoted that simultaneously maximize the preservation of biodiversity and the improvement of human well-being. So in effect, the main goal is human well-being. So what are the possible implications on agriculture and crop diversity? We live and survive fully dependent on agricultural science. Humanity depends on agricultural science. So it is rightful for us to ask the possible implications of this new conservation science on agriculture and crop diversity. So we'll try to see again the diagram that has been proposed by Carrieva and Marvier in 2012, where agriculture takes a prominent spot in conservation science, in the new conservation science. You will see that in the conservation biology proposed in 1985, agriculture is not even mentioned. It's maybe it could be subsumed under forestry, fishery biology, and public policy, but there is none, no, it does not take prominence in 1985. That's why this time the new conservationists have recognized the fact that agriculture is very important in conservation of resources as well, so that agriculture takes a very prominent spot. UPN, Faculty of Agriculture, should be taking a prominent spot in the new conservation science quest. So possible implications on agriculture. One, agriculture should be all the more holistic, well-grounded with the principles of ecology, economics, and social science. I have observed that many agriculture curricula in many universities, principles of ecology are not well articulated in the curriculum. I think it's high time that the Faculty of Agriculture and the agriculture curricula should include maybe a huge amount of principles of ecology, maybe about 3-5 subjects, 3 to 5 subjects that would include the principles and the applications of ecology as a science. And then economics and social science, because these are very important. That's why we are producing agriculturists who would not be able to invest so much, because there is not much background on economics, maybe. And then number 2, conservation of high-yielding crop species for increasing human population. And we better explore novel ones as well from the wild, so that many rural areas had been complaining that their indigenous varieties are eroding, or they are losing a lot of gen pool from their farms. It's high time that ecologists will have to help, and focus on conserving high-yielding crop species and native varieties for a particular locality, because they are the ones speaking for the locality, and they're producing a lot for that locality because they are adapted to that locality. And the number 3, conservation of diverse crops native to the locality in the form of a policy with support from the business sectors. Because you see, without a policy, conservation may not take effect that much. So therefore, there has to be policy that should support the conservation of the native crop species in the locality. And there has to be support from the business sectors. Otherwise, they will be producing a lot of this and then nobody will buy after all. So there has to be a transdisciplinary discussion, not only among scientists, but also with the policymakers and the business sectors of the locality. So the ecology principles observed by the new conservation science would enhance harmonious human-nature interaction observed in Hongdo and Ifugao in northern Philippines, actually. And when agrobiodiversity is safeguarded, then there is food security, which is a main problem right now in the world. Now at the global arena, we have the International Partnership for the Satoyama Initiative. I don't know if you have heard of this organization. This has been approved as a global conservation initiative at the Conference of the Parties in 2010, no? Conference of the Parties of the Convention on Biological Diversity in Nagoya, Japan, during that time in 2010. So this is a global strategy believed to help, conserve our working landscapes. So we have the concept of the International Partnership for the Satoyama Initiative. People normally tend to utilize and manage their surrounding natural environment to sustain and improve their lives and production activities, such as agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. However, at times, these activities would result to environmental degradation. Recognizing this, the International Partnership for the Satoyama Initiative members work together toward realizing societies in harmony with nature to enhance resiliency. Satoyama, by the way, is actually a working landscape, a landscape that is composed of forest, farm, and villages, originating in Japan, but this is also existing in many countries in Southeast Asia and in Europe and in the Americas as well. So it's just like this. This is actually a photograph from one Ifugao rice terraces in the northern Philippines. And you will see here, IPSI is just like the new conservation science, advocating a focus on working landscapes and tight coupling of social and natural systems. You will see here, we have the forest ecosystem, a natural system. You will have the farm, which is a social system together with the village. So there has to be a tight coupling of these natural and social systems in order to achieve conservation of the nature, and at the same time of enhancing a better production, a higher production of our farms. Membership of the International Partnership for the Satoyama Initiative is by institution. So originally in 2010, when this was endorsed to the Conference of the Parties of the Convention on Biological Diversity, only 51 founding members were present. However, it has grown to a very high number now of members. As of July 2022, we have around 292 organizations located in several countries around the world, composed of universities, NGOs, POs, LGUs, and several other organizations. So this is they are meeting every year in a global symposium at a designated country that is being agreed by the steering committee of the International Partnership for the Satoyama Initiative. During the COVID times, it was temporarily stopped, and then I think it will commence now. I think this year or next year it will commence now, the face-to-face conference of this in a designated country. So how do we become a member of the IPSI, or the International Partnership for the Satoyama Initiative? I would advise you to visit the Satoyama Initiative website. And in this website, you will see a lot of in the menus, and you will see how to become a member. And then you will just have to follow the procedures on how to become a member of this initiative, meaning your organization, I mean. So your organization will be the one registered as a member, but there will be a contact person. The one doing the paperwork will be the contact person and will always be informed of the activities of the IPSI and the global meetings of the IPSI. IPSI advocates sustainable harvest for the family, the community, and the globe. So that is what IPSI wants. That's why IPSI would like to really work on the working landscapes, the socio-ecological production landscapes and seascapes, actually. And how about implications on nature conservation? Are there implications on nature conservation? Do we have to stop temporarily? Do we have to sustain the protected areas that we have? Or do we have to add more protected areas so that we will have more nature reserves throughout the world? We will examine again the diagram that has been proposed by Cariva and Marvier in 2012. So conservation science. So the whole of conservation biology, the natural science disciplines actually are subsumed under the name conservation biology in the 2012 diagram of conservation science. This means that the conservation science is advocating for nature conservation, for PA's conservation, and even more to that. That's why they include other disciplines, interdisciplinary and even transdisciplinary, to cater to the needs of the human population in the surrounding protected areas. So possible implications on nature conservation, maybe on the approach, no? The approach should be nurturing and people-centered. Residents are well aware of the protected areas with available livelihood in the vicinities and no more conservation refugees. Right now, there are lots of conservation refugees because once a PA is being proclaimed or declared, then these people will have to be relocated. They become conservation refugees. And the new conservation science would not want that because they are human-centered, people-centered. So therefore, there has to be livelihood in the vicinities which are not much, it's being emphasized actually, but there is not much, no? It's more in the writing, but not in the reality. Then conservation science should be more collaborative, holistic, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary, encouraging sectors like policy, like local governance, and other groups, the local people. They should have the voice. And then it has to be optimistic. There should be no pronouncement of the doomsday all the time. It has to be optimistic, more localized, national, local endemics have to be prioritized because they are the characteristic of the locality. Sustainability of the land or the environment requires peace. It requires peace. And what is peace? Peace is the absence of war, the absence of conflict, the absence of threats, the absence of danger, but it also means people engaged in active community experience. So very important, people engaged in active community experience. They should be part, no? They should be always part of our conservation initiatives. We have to engage with the local people and the local community. Local people are involved in our conservation study in Samar Forest over limestone, consistent with the new conservation science. We are developing a localized strategy in prioritizing conservation of plant resource in the forest over limestone, involving local people. Because you see, we cannot prioritize all the species all at the same time. So we have to prioritize them. We have to take one step at a time. you see. So therefore, that is what we are doing, and we need the inputs from the local people and from different genders and age brackets. The forests over limestone of Samar Island are critical ecosystems, actually, serving as habitats of unique flora, fauna, and microorganisms. So therefore, we really want to have this. This is the largest in the Philippines and one of the largest in Southeast Asian forest over limestone. We did ecological and taxonomic studies since 2019 in Samar Island Forest over Limestone under the research program Conserve Kaigangan. Kaigangan is the local dialect of forest over limestone in that particular part of the Philippines. Phase 1 of the Conserve Kaigangan discovered new plant species like Hoya kaiganganiana here on the top, Corybas kaiganganianus, the next one, the Caisnina tomentosa, which is a mistletoe on the lower, the bottom left, and then you have the Begonia norma aguileri and many new distribution records. So therefore, we believe that there are lots of native and endemics in this forest over limestone, and therefore there is a need to look into this and maybe study their utilitarian value. Samar Island Forest over limestone is actually a mega diversity. Locals should know and be involved in the planning and management of the resource. So inconsistent with the new conservation science concept. To come up with the prioritized list of species, we have this formula. Localized conservation priority index equal to harvesting risk. We refer here to the different organs. If many organs are being harvested, then there is higher risk. Like for example, if the fruits, the flowers, the stem, the trunk, the leaves, the roots are harvested from time to time, then there is a high risk of endangerment of this particular species. Then the economic use, if it is used for food, for fiber, for clothing, for medicine, and all the higher number of uses, then the more threatened is the particular species. Cultural use, meaning they are used in rituals, in religion, they are used in celebrations. So the more uses, again, the higher the risk would be. And then you have the species distribution. So if they are distributed only in Samar, then there is high risk that it could be threatened if it will be lost in Samar because it's not found anymore in other parts of the Philippines. And more so if it is not found in other parts of the world, in Asia and the world. And then you have the frequency value taken from our field data. So the lesser the number, the lesser the number of the value of this frequency value, the more threatened is the species. So we computed this. The higher total scores will have higher level of conservation priority. The LGUs and the POs for policy recommendations, the top 20 plants here will be geotagged for stricter protection. And we have here the scores, priority level and decision, 1 to 8. It means it's low and it's suitable for high impact harvesting. People can still harvest because the priority level is low. 9 to 16, it's medium. It can be harvested with specific quotas now. So it has to be regulated by the local officials. And then 17 to 25, it has high priority level, requiring strict regulation in harvesting. In North America, I found this journal paper published by Wiley's, prioritizing nationally endemic species for conservation. And this is in consonant with the goal that if they are threatened, if they are only found in that country, if it is a national endemic, then It is the only one found in the world, and therefore it is globally threatened already. So this is the way they prioritized in the conservation of the endemic species in North America. And the last paper I have read about reconceptualizing conservation, the conservation, offering a conservation acrostic from the word conservation. They said that we have to focus on how to do conservation. This paper, authored by Cook and colleagues, had been published in PLOS, Sustainability and Transformation Journal. So this is a very good paper, and I find it very interesting and very informative. So I think it would be good if we will look at the acrostic. So for C, it means co-produced. It means co-produced, so that there is a need for strong collaboration with stakeholders and right holders and decision makers. This promotes credibility. If you have that collaborative partners, stakeholders, right holders, and decision makers, this promotes credibility, saliency or prominence, and legitimacy. So it would be good to co-produce. When we do conservation activities, it has to be co-produced with very important partners, the stakeholders, right holders, and decision makers. Letter O represents openness, meaning information should be transparent and it has to be accessible to the public. It has to be accessible to the public. If there has to be laymanized versions, because sometimes technical write-ups may not be that important to local people. So therefore, there has to be laymanized versions of our papers. Then letter N here is nimble, meaning we should be able to move quickly. There has to be a quick action here, or else we can be overcome by degradation, by species loss, by high financial costs. So therefore, we have to act very quickly. And then letter S means solution-oriented, rather than always threatening the public with problems and doomsday threats. We always tell the public, the doomsday is coming, something like that. So maybe instead of doing that, we have to focus on the solutions to our problems right now. Focus on the problems of climate change, focus on the problems of warming and elevation of sea level, etc. Letter E is empowering. Empowerment needs or results to building of local capacities. And this is very important. We have to build capacities so that they would be able to understand better our conservation quest. And then letter R is relational. Relational. There should be harmonious relationship between people and nature. There should be effective conservation, emphasizing historical and continued relationship and responsibility between people and nature and the land, or the environment. And this nature should be accessible by everyone. It doesn't have to be isolated. It doesn't have to be separated. There should be no wall between society and the protected area, the wilderness, the pristine wilderness we are espousing. And then letter V means values-based. Conservation activities should be reinforce cultural connection to the land or to nature of the locals, whether socio-cultural or economic economic goals or economic values, So this has to be anchored on those. And then letter A is actionable. This means that conservation should be, data and activities should be open, should be trusted, should be replicated and validated and collaboratively generated. There has to be a collaborative generation of those data sets so that it becomes trusted, replicated, and validated. It can be trusted, it can be replicated. You will be confident when it will be replicated and when it will be validated. Okay. And then letter T is transdisciplinary. This means that there should be inclusive cooperation and partnership between scientists, policymakers, and stakeholders. Transdisciplinarity necessitates co-production, relational spirit, and values-based practices. And then you have letter I, inclusive. All voices should be heard, even the lowliest of the member of the community should be heard. And then letter O is optimistic. Actually, we have to be realistic. It's easier to become pessimistic. No? It's easier to be pessimistic this time due to serious global problems, aggravated by climate change, by extinction, especially during this epoch of the Anthropocene. And we all know that. But how can we attract the young generations, the next generation, if we focus on the problems, if we focus on the problems and not on the solutions? That's why we have to focus, we have to be very optimistic. And then letter N is nurturing. Nurturing creates opportunities to collaborate across interests, economic sectors, and organizational structures. Nurturing creates resilience capacity, ability to deal with and adapt and structure change in our rapidly evolving complex world. So therefore, we have to nurture nature, nurture working landscapes, nurture conservation collaborators, and nurture conservation collaboration, and nurture the young generation. And that is how to do conservation, according to Koch and colleagues published in the PLOS journal. With people always in mind in implementing the new conservation science, we can conserve ecosystems and ecosystem processes, very critical ecosystem processes, enhanced tight coupling of natural and social systems with ecosystem services overflowing to adjacent farms, plantations, villages, benefiting humankind. Thank you. Terima kasih.
To elaborate more on the webinar topic, we will now proceed with the discussion.
What is the best strategy to ask the community to join our conservation strategies in developing or underdeveloped countries?
Thank you so much for that question. Quite difficult, but with enabling technologies that we have now in the Society 5.0 era, I think it would be, it could be facilitated. Of course, the first, because you were mentioning about education, the first thing would be laymanizing the technical terminologies of our new conservation science concept. So it has to be laymanized and to be understood by the local communities, even the most ignorant and illiterate community, because they are also a voice in the society. We have to hear their voice as well, even if they are very illiterate. So therefore, it is now our job to laymanize laymanize the writing so that they would be able to understand. I think number one here would be really awareness. This is education campaign, and with Society 5.0 now on the making, or now acting actually, and I think we can make use of the technologies. Firstly, I think even without the Society 5.0 yet, even the 4.0, the internet is very effective. So the internet could spread this news to everyone in the world that we have this new concept, and everyone has to be encouraged, because this is human-centered. This is human-centered. This is focused on us. This is focused on everyone. So I think that should be the first one, because otherwise they will still have that concept that to conserve, they have to leave, no? They have to leave the forest to conserve the ecosystem. And this is not so good, because we are producing millions of conservation refugees. So before we have political refugees, but this time we have conservation refugees as well, you see, because we have to relocate them to areas where they cannot destroy the forest anymore, which is not good. So instead, we have to empower them. We have to empower them to help us conserve the vicinities of their dwellings, so that they will still harbor the ecosystem services that the forest or whatever ecosystem is producing. I hope I have answered your question. I think number one is education campaign. Education campaign at all levels, and in whatever media available, provided by Society 5.0 and even Society 4.0.
How to face challenges in agricultural conservation, especially for younger generations? What kind of actual action can we take?
Thank you. This is a good voice from the young, a good voice from the young. And I think you have a great role, no? You have a great role to play. Number one is education campaign. I think we have to go back to education campaign, awareness campaign. That should always be number one. In fact, in our project in the forest over limestone, because we documented several plants, animals, and microorganisms. And for the animals, we have several snakes, poisonous and non-poisonous alike. We tried to produce SEPA materials, communication, education, and public awareness materials. And we tried to share that with our health professionals in the locality, so that it would be easier for them to diagnose which snake was biting a particular victim, so that they would be able to prescribe the right medicine. They would be able to appease the victim of the snake. So that is what we are doing. Not only about snakes, we provide them materials about birds, local birds. We provide them materials about local plants unique only to their locality, and all of this. So I think we go back to that strategy of campaign awareness. Education campaign is very important, because our local people, as what you have mentioned during the after I answered the question, local people, they are left because the young ones are migrating to the cities. So when they migrate to the cities, they were losing the opportunities to share what they have learned from the universities with their community people. Which should not be. Of course, some of them will have to go to cities because the work demands and all. But it would be good to share with the community from time to time what they have learned from the universities as well. So therefore, education campaign is always number one, about saving endangered species of the agriculture sector. In our case, we have so many heirloom varieties. I think Dr. Gomez was discussing that in the morning. But many of these varieties are now disappearing. And many of the local people are not really cultivating these heirloom varieties anymore. So I think we have to inform them in an education campaign that these varieties, these local varieties are their wealth. These are their treasures, and they need to preserve them. They have the responsibility. They have the responsibility, the global responsibility to preserve that, to conserve that, because it doesn't exist in the Americas. It doesn't exist in Europe. It doesn't exist in Africa. It exists only in their own locality. For example, East Java, only in East Java. So therefore, it is our responsibility, a moral responsibility, a moral obligation of the community to conserve that variety, gene pool. Yeah. So back to education.